We're going to talk about my favorite topic, Bivacor, total artificial heart. What is it? Past, present, and future. We'll start with a little bit of history. Some of you know already. Steve here lived it. But we'll go from there and we'll talk about future, which is Bivacor, I'm pretty sure. These slides are stolen from Dr. Fraser and Dr. Cohn with their express permission. So as we know, the heart failure in the U.S. is a pretty big problem. We all know we have patients every day, over 5 million living with heart failure in the U.S. About 50% of them would die in 5 years of diagnosis. About 400,000, 500,000 deaths due to heart failure every year, at least only in U.S. Cost about $360 billion in healthcare per year. So this was when it started. As far as we're concerned, there were, back in the days, there were many centers, or at least few centers in the country and over the Europe. They're trying to develop something to fix the heart, LVAD or heart transplant or total artificial heart. But the first one ever was done at Methodist.
An LVAD was designed to keep patients alive during and after operations by supporting their heart's left ventricle.
This is the model which we're using now, and if you can visualize this, my fingers as the rib cage, this heart frame, the framework that you see here, fits in between the ribs. And if you watch here, you'll see when I blow into this, that plastic material is what forces the blood out of the chamber.
DeBakey was the first person to use an LVAD in the operating theatre.
Okay. Did it work? All right.
The first patient that we had from clinical experience was very impressive.
So I paused it because I want you to remember that this looks very, very primitive. It has huge compressor equipment that's bigger than my shop, but that the principle on its own is still being used in the current total artificial heart, which is Syncardia. It's exactly the same principle still being used.
We were able to relieve the patient of failure, so that spurred us on.
My major goal now, as far as my research work is concerned, is to perfect the artificial heart.
So the idea was at the time that the heart is just a pump. If we can put something artificial to support the left ventricle, we're sure that we can make something that just pumps in and out continuously. And that's when in 1964, artificial heart program was founded by National Health Institute. They set a goal for 3 years to develop a total artificial heart. 3 years. And again, everybody thought that it's just a pump. It should not be hard. It shouldn't be any complicated. We are sending men to moon right now. There's no way we cannot figure out a total artificial heart. Even people were going as far as having nuclear powered total artificial heart that you can have implanted power plant in your body. So original contractors in 1966, these are the original National Health Institute contractor awarded contracts to these companies. If you notice, only Stanford Research Institute was the only one with any medical background. Everybody else is either in energy, big engineering companies. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 6 were non-medical. And I'm pretty sure that Stanford got part of the contract because they needed somewhere to test the equipment or machines they were going to make. Even they had this prototype of Elvin that was completely self-sufficient. So you have a small amount of plutonium in your body with a small generator that will generate power, enough power to run the Elvin. You'll never need anybody else. You wouldn't know you have one. Domingo Liotta and Dr. Cooley and Dr. DeBakey were working on this total artificial heart. Again, based on the same principle that they had the first VAD working.
Feeling that the chances of finding a donor heart for CARP were slim, Cooley went where...
This is the first total artificial heart in 1969, and everybody knows there's a books written, movie about that on this one. When Dr. DeBakey was out, and Dr. Cooley had a patient, and him and Dr. Liotta thought that it would be the best idea to implant and see if the heart works.
Feeling that the chances of finding a donor heart for CARP were slim, Cooley went where no surgeon had gone before. Working without the approval of either his hospital or the government, he removed the two lower chambers of CARP's heart and replaced them with an 8-ounce plastic artificial heart that had never been tested in
Keywords, without permission from the hospital or the government.
humans.
This was strictly an emergency situation, and that's been my purpose all along, was to save Mr. Karp's life.
The possibility has now been established as a reality. The fact that Mr. Karp has regained organ function in terms of cerebral function and kidney function indicates that its mechanical heart is a feasibility. But there's much to be done now. It's much like embarking on the space program. We know that a rocket will go up off of the surface of the Earth, but we haven't set foot on the moon yet.
We did set foot on the moon in the next few months. We still don't have the total artificial heart. This was the control room in the patient's room for the total artificial heart at the time, April 1969. That started a bitter feud between Dr. DeBakey and Dr. Cooley. There was, like I said, stories written about that. Meanwhile, Dr. Jarvik also was working with the total artificial heart that depended on the same technology as the pneumatic heart, air pneumatic heart they had. That's Dr. DeBakey, Dr. Cooley with Dr. Fraser, and that's their Dr. Jarvik's original prototype. Jarvik 7, the seventh iteration of the total artificial heart of Dr. Jarvik was on one of these patients for 112 days. Akutsu was also working on one of those. As you can see, it closely resembles the same basic principles, same ideas. And Akutsu had done one in 1982 that was based on Akutsu, Jarvik 7. So I obviously made news, and we thought we have it. Everybody thought that we have the heart. Artificial heart recipient suffers third stroke, and slowly we learn that just the machine making a pump, it's not hard, it's just a pump. Eventually, they had to pull Dr. Jarvik's total artificial heart out. This is the few of them going from left to right. These were first one, Dr. Liotta, that was implanted by Dr. Cooley. Then you have Jarvik 7, CardioVest, which is now Syncardia, and then you have EbioCore. So EbioCore was one of the more advanced, more technological advanced and better self-contained one unit pump or total artificial heart at the time. And he was here at the Texas Heart Institute again. So the they were done about 150, more than 150 animal implants at the lab, THI lab downstairs. About 14 patients were implanted between 2001 and 2002, 5 of them at Texas Heart. Longest survival with this heart was 15 months. Only 4 patients lived longer than 9 months. The causes of deaths were infection, stroke, multi-system organ failure, and device failure. The device failure was one of the big things also, as we know, it has to beat about 115,000 times a day at 80 beats per minute, 42 million times a year. The longest survival experience pump failure at 15 months. So there's so many moving parts in the machine, in the heart, that you're more prone to fail. The ABU was too big. You have to have a big patient to fit. Consume too much power, 38 watts. It's a lot of power if you will compare to the other ones. It was challenging to balance this was one of the main issues with self-contained total artificial heart, which was pulsatile, is the balance the left and right, pulmonary system and the circulatory system. As we know, even only if you consider the pulmonary extra volume that comes on the right side is like 1 cc per beat. Over a day, you have to dump so much extra volume from the left side, from the right side to the left side. That was a big problem. Here it's original coverage. So these are the direct descendant of the original Dr. Lira's pneumatic heart. That's the Syncardia, Jarvik 7 to Symbiont, which is CardioWest and Syncardia. This is pretty much the only total artificial heart that survived and is still being used today. As we know, more than 2,000 patients implanted. This is the only one available anyway now, that except the one from France. We'll talk about that in a second. 60% 1-year survival, which is very good. Syncardia, temporary total artificial heart, 79% survival to transplant. Average time for implant to transplant is 60 days. 60% 1-year survival, 1 patient more than 5 years. Again, it has limited durability of freedom driver. You have to have a compressor outside your body. You have to walk around with the compressor. The freedom driver is the latest one, and you can actually walk around with it. It used to be big machines that you have to walk around with. That's one thing. One of the things that Dr. Fraser was mentioning, that one of the reasons that Syncardia lasted as long as it lasted, it was still there, is because most of the mechanism to run the heart is outside the body. So if you have to change something, you can have some redundant capacity in it. So if it fails something, you can always have a way to fix it. The only moving parts are the 4 valves that you have in the heart. And so as long as they're good, it should be going. And that happens to be one of the most plaguing problems for Syncardia is the valves, because sometimes they just get shut and they don't open. During all these times, in 1998, Dr. Fraser and Craig worked on this thing called hemopump, and that changed the entire landscape of heart transplant, which we'll see. The first clinical use of hemopump was here at Texas Heart Institute, and hemopump was a small axial flow pump that stayed in the heart through your aortic valve, transaortic valve. It would suck the blood from the ventricle, unload the ventricle into the aorta. And as you can see, this is this is the predecessor of all the centrifugal and axial flow pumps, including Impella. Impella is pretty much the direct derivation of it. As you see, it will take blood from the left ventricle and pump it into the aorta. The hemopump had a motor outside of the body. The Impella has the motor now embedded in the pump. So experience with the hemopump demonstrated that the continuous flow through a small high-speed rotary axial flow at 25,000 RPM was well tolerated, which was never demonstrated before that day. It was just, everybody thought that 25, 10,000, 20, 15,000, 10,000, 20, 25,000 RPM will be way too detrimental on the RBCs and the blood, and you would not survive. Apparently that wasn't the case. And all current continuous flow pumps developed as a result of this experience, including the centrifugal pumps as well. So these were the first axial flow pumps, the Jarvik 2000, HeartMate 2s, and the Baker pumps. They all worked in their ways. There more came out after that, second generation, third generation pumps. The benefits of the continuous flow Advil was they were smaller, they were easier to implant, they were quieter, very much more energy efficient, and above all, they were more durable. More than 6,000 patients have had a single HeartMate 2 pump prior placed for 10 years or more, over 100, 12 years or older. And that's just the HeartMate 2, which is long gone. So looking at the success of all the HeartMate 2s and axial flow devices, Dr. Fraser thought, why don't we put two axial flow together and see if we can make it out of a heart, total artificial heart, out of those type of technology, right? So Dr. Cohn goes to the medical device prototyping headquarters, finds the basic material, literally your bathtub silicone and the mat, and makes the cones, makes the devices, fits the Micromed DeBakey pump. And the first one were done by Jarvik flow makers, the two Elevets. And they were done on calves. These are these are total artificial heart made with two Jarvik. As you can see, they look good doing that. So these were for the Micromed total artificial heart. So that's the total artificial heart right there. They also experimented with the HeartMate 3s, which was still in the process of going to the FDA. This is the calf with dual Jarvik flow maker total artificial heart. Named him Tin Man, if you didn't notice. This is after 7 weeks. And you can see the calf is on the treadmill. Very encouraging results. Encountered, or one of the one was the venous thrombosis. So if you have a DVT issues, any other problems that has clots coming through your right side, the axial flow, especially all the axial flow, actually did not tolerate well. So that was one of the main problems. So what they learned was again, right pump thrombus remains problematic. They never saw a left arm thrombus. Infections, obviously, they see few infections. Balance between left and right pump facilitated by the automatic automaticity of the continuous flow. As we know, the continuous flow pumps, the centrifugal and the axial flow are preload and afterload dependent. So if you had too much volume, if you had to float more, you'll have to adjust that. But the left and right adjustment wasn't as much needed as if you had the pulsatile flow, total artificial heart. About 90 days, animals gain weight about 60 pounds. So the limit a 10 liters limit, 10 liters per minute limit was, too little for those now. So they did about 68 cows. These are the chronic ones. The acute ones, they were about 30 or 40 more done. They did about 45 of Jarvik Micromed, which is the Vicky heart, few Jarviks, hardware, HeartMate 3. So generally flows about 8 to 11 liters per minute. Left flow slightly greater than the right flows. Obviously, we know total power is very low, 15 watts for 2 motors. Remember that. So, but it required 2 microprocessors. You have 2 different controls, and you have to make sure you're controlling both as needed. So that was another question that everybody would know. You really need a pulse, right? So we know that at capillary level, the flow is continuous. The gas exchange, exercise tolerance, and organ function and histology, all of them has been normal in their more than 70 experiments. Washout beyond the atherosclerotic lesion is reduced, mostly because the pulse is needed to overcome the lesion you have in the vessels. GI bleeding may be related to decreased pulsatility. And if I remember correctly, if I know right, that GI bleeding has been the biggest problem for HeartMate 2 as well in human beings. The pulsatility, if you need it, you can design a device to have some pulsatility. It could be made. So dual continuous pump experience, 30 calf survived more than 1 week. 8 were able to do exercise on the treadmill. 3 animals survived more than 90 days or 90 days duration. So right about time, they thought maybe we could do a twin turbine total artificial heart. At the time, Dr. Fraser assertion was continuous flow pumps are very well suited for integration in the next generation total artificial heart. Some degree of pulsatility is required. You can design a pump like that. The small size, the reduction in mechanical complexity, and very little need for power. They thought it would be very feasible for a total artificial heart, continuous flow for total artificial heart. And he was very sure the first practical permanent mechanical replacement for the failing heart would be continuous flow total artificial heart. So after all those experiments on cows, they got very enthusiastic and very sure that they could put someone in human. So they designed this with two HeartMate 2s, and that was their first twin turbine total artificial heart in a patient. 11 or 2012. So this is the total artificial heart made with 2 HeartMate 2s in a human being. The gentleman lived about 2 weeks. He had terminal disease and a family, and they were consented to do this. Of course, get some more press. Meanwhile, there was another technology that came around in the pumps. Was total magnetically levitated pumps, maglabs. And as we know, CentriMag was the first one to come out with that. HeartMate 3, currently being used mostly, has totally maglev impeller. Researchers in Sydney, Australia, Dr. Daniel Timms, had made a total artificial heart as his PhD project. And Dr. Fraser and the team were in Australia at the time. And he approached Dr. Fraser and team and said, hey, I have this idea and this is how it works. Would you be able to help us out? And they said, okay, come to America and we'll see if we can find some funding. Long story short, they made a plastic one first. As you can see, it's very small compared to the idea 4. And they started doing experiments on cows. is 1 to 3 days implant, first implant, which is fifth cow that was able to So what is a bible core? Actually, I don't have it, but it's this one impeller, maglev impeller that actually floats in the middle of the two chambers. One chamber is left, one chamber is right, and it pumps both sides at the same time. Being a maglev, you have a little bit clearance all around the impeller. So after a bunch of experimentation, they figured out that these were the left side volutes or left side chambers were the best suited. And these are the impellers on one side and the other side. They both look different. These are the right side impeller. As you can see, the fins are very different than the left side impeller. And here's the, again, right side impeller. They figured out that this is the best suited for that, and best suited left side impeller. The other thing that helped them a lot was 3D printing in titanium. I find it very interesting. You have this titanium dust, and laser goes around and melts the titanium as you need, and the end product is that. printed titanium bible core, and they started doing the experiment on that. So you have pulseless calf with 3D printed titanium bible core. So at the time, you had 10 liters per minute flow left and right for less than 10 watts. You could go up to 23 liters per minute if you wanted to. Pulsatile, if you wanted, you can make it pulsatile. Autonomous moment-to-moment balancing between the systemic and the pulmonary circulation. Magnetic levitation, no mechanical wear, there's no bearing, there's no other moving part besides the impeller itself. It's just one moving part. Wide blood gaps, like I said, it was the area around the impeller is about 4 millimeter radius, which gives you continuous wash from left to side, because the left is working at a higher pressure, higher afterload than the right. So you always have this left to right shunt all the time, so which is going to keep cleaning the surrounding area. 6x6, very small. This is the final pump design. As you can see, the other important aspect of this is a characteristic of this is you can see the middle rotor impeller moving left to right. Moving left to right changes the flow characteristics of the flow. So as you need it, you can have the left and right adjustment on its own. Pulsatile. Pulsatile flow, as you can see, flow pulse from 0 to 20 liters per minute, and it gave you a pulse of 120 over 80. Arterial delta P over delta T is more than 500, meaning it can provide momentarily very high flow at higher pressure if required. You can do 60 to 120 beats per minute. Motor power was only 7.8 volts. So not much difference in anything. There's you can see how much pressure it can create. You pinch it, it has a lot of pressure. It can create a lot of pressure, you can see. And as a matter of fact, you could make it so precise that you can have a dichrotic notch kind of waveform if you want. Although it doesn't have any valve, it shouldn't have a dichrotic notch. You can design it, you can program this thing to mimic a dichrotic notch. Not that you ever need it. So they are doing the durability testings right now. This slide is a little old. but more than 1 year's already passed, 6 months already passed, 1 year's passed, and they're on their way to test years on in. Hemolysis is minimal. They were compared with the Sentinel pump, comparable with the Sentinel pump, with or without pulse. They also tried to implant this in a pig. As you can see in the top left corner, it fits very well. On the right, Dr. Adachi out of Texas Children's Hospital, they're trying to put one in the pig. The other day we put, not pig, sorry, sheep. The other day we put one in the sheep and it fits very well. Obviously the anatomy of the sheep, the pig, the cows are very, very different. So you'll have to kind of figure out how to position the pump so that it pumps how you want it. Is the one with the pulse ox. You have stability, and hence the pulse oximeter can work. One on treadmill, the two of them on a treadmill at the same time, actually. So the last 5, they were done for the FDA study. Apparently, you don't need more than 30 days anymore. And these are the results for the last 5 that they submitted for the FDA, to the FDA. As far as safety goes, it's maglev. Like I said, there's one moving part, no bearing, redundant motor. The cables are redundant. Everything is double. It's automatic adaptable high flow. It fits. This is the current monitor right now. I think they're going to go with just that. They're not going to make any changes in the monitor itself. So more than 28 chronic animals up to 90 days. 6 of 7 survive 30 days or more. Design freeze enriched, design manufacture completed. They got funding. FDA has a favorable interactions with them. GLP studies are finished. They are expecting one first in men anticipated in Q3, Q4 of 24. Probably Q4. First in human up to 5 patients for short-term use. That's what they're expecting from FDA. That's for pretty much protocol. This was written, there was a book written, we should read it, that Ticker by Mimi Schwartz, has the entire story of the heart, total artificial heart, very well done. So the CARMET is the other pulsatile total artificial heart available right now, and they've been using it in some places. I don't have any experience with it. As you can see, it's pulsatile, and it's pneumatic pulsatile. I think it has a silicone oil in it that moves the chambers and moves the volume accordingly. Now, it obviously has valves and has lots of moving parts, so we'll have to see the short, long-term durability. Also, it's a fixed size, right? So you can do only so much with a fixed size, especially with the pulsatile. If you have fixed cardiac output, 50 cc, 80 cc, whatever the heart you made, it's a fixed cardiac output. If you want to fixed stroke volume, if you want to improve or change the cardiac output, you have to change the beats per minute, and you're going to have limit on that. There's another one, the Cleveland Clinic was working on it, and it's pretty much the same principle as Bivacor, designed a little bit different. From what I heard and what I understand is that they have sold their IP, intellectual properties, to a private venture, so I don't think they pursue it as academic anymore. They also had a prototype for children, for pediatrics, very, very small. Obviously, you can downscale, upscale this pumps very easily. Oh, look, it's done.